All right, welcome back, folks. Another edition live at Drew's house. Hope everybody is doing okay out there. It is definitely, it's definitely not feeling like fall today. It's kind of warm, but we've had some of those weird days going back. The chill of the fall, dip back into summertime temperatures. A little bit crazy in my neck of the woods here at Danvers, but hope everybody's doing okay. Once again, I got these like fall things that are out, and my wife is putting them around. So this is our set in a pandemic. All right. Hope everybody's doing okay. How about the life of a concert organizer in a pandemic? Always a fun topic to talk about. Kind of, not really. Chris Porter from Porter Productions joins us. How are you, Chris?
I'm doing all right, thanks. Despite being in an industry that's about people gathering, and we can't gather people, so that's you're right. It's a very odd time for us.
Absolutely. This is the first time we're meeting. It's nice to meet you virtually.
Likewise.
Where are you coming to us from?
Seattle, Washington.
Oh, okay.
I know, yeah. So in a normal year, I split my time between Seattle and Boston, or actually more exact is Lowell, actually. I have a home in Lowell. I was born and raised in Lowell, so I have a lot of ties there, and that's where the Town and the City Festival happens. But I also do some work in Boston as well. My company oversees the booking management for Once Ballroom over in Somerville. And we've done some projects for WERS and some other entities. So I do, and I have family there. So I do find myself back in the Boston area a lot during the year. But this year it's been a little tough. I've been kind of stuck in Seattle like most folks.
So all sorts of local ties, though, which is great. I wonder, Seattle, you have a great football team. I don't want to get too distracted, but that football team is very good.
But my football, you'll be happy to know, though, yes, and I've lived in Seattle for over 20 years, and I wish the Seahawks well, but I am a diehard New England Patriots fan, so that never changes.
Well, they've had some good success over the years, I would
say. Just a little, right? Yeah, exactly. But yeah, the Hawks are good. Yeah, and I was really, not to go on too much of a tangent, but I was really heartbroken in some way. It was very bittersweet because, the Patriots only visit Seattle once every 8 years. And they were here on September 20th, my birthday, and I would have been at the game. I would have had a big. I do some event work for New England, Boston sports fans who are based in Seattle. And we have gatherings, and we do a lot of fundraising for the Jimmy Fund and all those things. When the Red Sox come to town, we do things. But so we would have done a huge pregame party, and it was all. Not, we couldn't obviously, and they wouldn't even let any fans in the stadium. So I could see the lights from the stadium from afar. I live a couple of miles north of there, and I'm like, so heartbreaking not to be able to be there. And it's such a great game. But
on your birthday, that's torture.
And it was on my birthday. It kind of was. It was like, here's this carrot, but you can't ever grab the carrot, But anyway, yeah, big sports fan, big sports and music. So I grew up in a great place for both of those things.
Absolutely. All right, let's dip into the music a little bit. And fair warning here, I happen to be recording with you at a time of day. The dogs tend to get very excited. If they make an appearance, we will, I don't know, we'll either carry on through and laugh about it, or maybe we'll pause it. We'll see. I saw the mailman.
And I'll roll with it.
You know how it works. This is pandemic living, right? All right.
Indeed.
So you mentioned it, Town and the City Festival. It's coming up. Here we go. Obviously, we're not going to have fans in attendance. Obviously, it's not going to be your normal festival. What are we doing this year?
Well, what we're doing really is a special webcast that's presented by the Town and the City Festival. Just to give some background for anybody who doesn't know about it, the Town and the City Festival is in a normal year a 2-day music and arts festival. It's a multi-genre and also multi-venue event, sort of a little bit like South by Southwest, which is the big version of that kind of style of festival that happens in Austin, Texas every year, where it's sort of like a venue hopping experience. And there are a lot of festivals like that around the country and around the world. And I thought, a few years ago, Lowell is very conducive to that. It has a very walkable downtown. There are a lot of venues. There are cafes, galleries, event spaces, bars where you could have performers, play their music over 2 nights. So that's how it would usually happen. And, we've had, a couple thousand people that have attended it in the past. This would have been the 3rd year, but unfortunately under the pandemic circumstances, we can't do that. So, and it would have happened this weekend. So that's why I'm doing this webcast on the weekend that it would have happened. So I don't mean to look at this as a replacement for the festival. Some people are saying, oh, here's our virtual festival or festival online. I suppose it's a little mini festival. I mean, normally I'd have something like 60 acts appearing over the 2 days. This is 15. So and obviously it's just going to be on our computer screens. But I wanted to keep the Town and the City Festival in people's minds, also help spread the word for it, in hopes that people will keep it in mind. So hopefully we can return next October in 2021. And also highlight some of the artists who we've had over the past 2 years, as well as 2 or 3 acts that we would have had this year, but because of the situation, I couldn't. So we put together, or putting together, we're still working on it right now, and getting it ready for Saturday, but it'll be, about 1 to 2 songs from each artist, mostly Boston or New England area artists, but there are a few from much further away too.
Absolutely. Anybody you're particularly excited about on the bill that maybe is a return or a surprise or whatever?
Well, good question, because I mean, I knew, there'd be a lot of acts that would, probably be into it, but I wasn't sure what kind of, because right now we're pretty up to our eyeballs in streamed concerts and streamed mini festivals and everything. And I had a little fear that maybe, everybody's at a little saturation point with it. But I got a lot of great feedback from artists who wanted to be a part of it. And some who, aren't from Boston, that I wasn't holding my breath. They'd say they'd do it, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we'll participate." So, for instance, Caitlin Canty was a very well-known Americana singer-songwriter from Nashville. She performed at Town and City 2 years ago, and she'll be putting together a little performance for us. Scarlett Sabet, who is a well-known London poet, who we also had in 2018. So there's a little bit of a spoken word element to this. It's not entirely music. Scarlett's a very well-known poet in poetry circles, and she is particularly known for doing a project with Jimmy Page, of Led Zeppelin fame, of course, and who's actually her boyfriend. I'll say that. So they're partners. So anyway, Scarlett, though, is a huge Jack Kerouac fan, huge, lover of Lowell, and she's been willing to participate for us. And then also some really notable local folks too. I mean, we have such a wealth of great area-based music that I don't think gets a spotlight enough in the world. So people like Ryan Montblow, Chris Trapper from the band Push Stars, Brooke Annabelle, Allie McGurk, Gary Hoey, actually, how can I forget Gary, who's actually born and raised in Lowell. Fantastic, has had a great hard rock and blues rock career. He's world renowned, and he's participating in it as well. So those are some of the names. But we're psyched to have it. Will Daly, Walter Sickert, Chris Brokaw, who's been in a number of bands over the years, also plays with the Lemonheads these days. Jeannie Santiago, something a little more on the sort of hip hop vein. Who am I forgetting? Oh, a great band from Brooklyn called Adolfo, who played in Boston a number of times. We had them at Once Ballroom before, and they're participating in it. And also Frank Morey, who used to be a regular at the Plow and Stars for many years, and he's from Lowell, kind of a Lowell music legend in a way. And he got away from music for a while, and then over the last couple of years, he's gotten back into it again, and he's participating as well. So we're psyched to have him. A new guy, Brian Hinckley Porter, who's a great singer-songwriter. And he'll be participating as along with Will Orchard, kind of an indie rock singer-songwriter who's played at Once Ballroom a number of times. And I think that's everybody, yeah.
Wow, good list. Nice job there.
Thank you.
Ryan Montblow, a friend of the show. That guy is everywhere. He is playing, I think, more than anybody during the pandemic. Good for Ryan.
Yep. I was inspired. I said, well, gee, he's doing his thing online. Maybe could he put something together for us? And he said, yeah, right away. So it was great to have him. We had him at the festival last year.
And, it's funny. The reason why Ryan just jumped in my head, he's playing outdoors this weekend in the town over from me in Beverly. And I'm going to check him out. And it led me to a conversation with I don't know if you're familiar with the Cabot Theater in Beverly.
Yeah, sure.
They've been trying to do these outdoor socially distanced concerts to try to keep business going, and it's really hard. It's
right outside the theater, or is that
well, they rented a little farmland.
Okay. Oh, I didn't know.
Beverly, yeah. So it's a whole recreation, partnering with a farm that's trying to keep them going a little bit, and so it's trying to mutual beneficial relationship, which I thought was cool. But just small crowds and really small crowds and socially distance, all that stuff makes it so hard. And the feedback, though, this is where I'm getting it. The musicians have been great as far as just, don't worry about what we usually get, then we're going to come, we're going to play. We'll do whatever you need. We'll show up on that live stream. We'll show up at your makeshift farm. I think it's been really, really, I think musicians almost entirely have had a really good name for themselves. I've just been impressed at how they've stepped up through the pandemic.
Well, it's the making lemonade out of lemons, as they say, right? You know, so much of this is out of our control, but what can we control? And obviously it's limited, but I hear about these parking lot concerts, or drive-in movie concerts, or people just doing things out on their porch for the neighbors. Some pretty well-known musicians doing that, because that's what they do. They make music. And granted, they can sort of pivot and like, okay, I guess this is the year I record my next album or whatever. They can do things that they can control, indoors, but they want to play live, and that's the thing that's so sad and hard is the whole event world, concert world, venues. I mean, you heard it a million times, and it needs to be repeated. It's first thing to close, and it's going to be the last thing to open.
Yeah, it is. What, again, Chris Porter joining us, Porter Productions. What has been the hardest part for you? Besides, I can tell you're a music junkie. You're like me. The fact that you can't go to a concert in the summertime is probably killing you a little bit.
Exactly. I mean, I can't wait. I mean, we're going to so appreciate it when we can finally do that.
It's so true, isn't it? I've always said I've said through all this, I will never take another concert for granted. I miss it so much.
Totally.
But and as far as organizing go, how do you get to become a festival organizer? Actually, how do you put yourself in this position?
Well,
a loaded
it's one
question.
of those things that, yeah, no, it's all good. Yeah, I mean, it's such an evolution, really. I mean, I started, I can look at my roots of me getting into music way back when I was, 19, 20 years old and doing college radio. I went to UMass Lowell, WJUL at the time, and I got really into that. I was the music director of that station. And then later on, I went to Brandeis and I worked at that station. So I thought I was going to go into radio, but then I started working with some bands. I was, being a, manager of bands, small, local, lesser known local bands, but that got my feet in the water even more. And then over time,
I heard that's a stress-free job, being a band manager. Right?
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, luckily, I was pretty lucky though that I worked with some artists, some performers who were pretty responsible people, but I would see what some of my peers would have to go through. So it can be a challenging job, to say the least. But I was doing that. I started a record label. It was called Presto Records. I put out a few releases in the late 80s, early 90s. And then, this is such a networky business, and, other opportunities come up. And back in 1990, I had an opportunity to book 2 shows a week at a venue called Bunratty's, which a lot of old timers will remember that place. It's over in Alston. It's where the Wonder Bar is now. But that was a rock and roll room for a long, long time. And the last 3 years of its existence, I worked there. And then the Middle East Club, which everyone knows, and that they had just opened up a few months earlier. Before I came over, they had opened up the Middle East downstairs. And so they needed another talent buyer there, and then I had timing was right, and so the opportunity worked out for me to work there, and I was there for 2 years. And then the Middle East was really hopping big time back in the 90s, and that caught the attention of a lot of people, not the least of which was Aerosmith's manager, a guy named Tim Collins. And Aerosmith and a company called the Lions Group that owned a lot of venues and restaurants at the time started this venue called Mamakin Music Hall back in 1995. And so and it was over on Lansdowne Street. It's sort of right now exists. The building's still there actually, but it's part of House of Blues. But that was a 3-roomed venue, and they kind of wanted, I think, a little piece of the Middle East and some cool hip kind of venue there at the time. And so I had an opportunity. They lured me over, and I did that for 2 years. Well, all those times, I get to travel, go to conferences, other, gatherings, whatever. You get to, even though we didn't, the whole internet age was just starting, I got to know a lot of people. And one of those people in the industry were out in Seattle, and they were producers of this festival called the Bumbershoot Festival, which was a multi-genre, huge festival that well, still technically exists. It happens at Seattle Center where the Space Needle is. And so every Labor Day weekend, there'd be over 100,000 people coming to this festival, and then huge acts, and then also smaller up and coming acts. And it's a very eclectic festival. And they were like, gee, they needed some new blood, and they needed a new music programmer on there. And it's like, would I be interested? And, I'll tell you, Drew, I lived in the Northeast all my life. I thought, my big move maybe would be to New York. And I'm looking on the map, man, it's like 3,000 miles away. It's the last stop before Tokyo. Do I really want to do this? But it was a really great opportunity. And I thought, well, the plane goes both ways. If it sucks, I'll come back. But I better give this a try. It seems like a great opportunity. I'll give it a couple of years and then maybe go on to something else. Well, 18 years later, I was still there. I loved it. I fell in love. So to your question about festivals, it was like a duck taking the water. I really, really got into it because while I like working on venues and putting on, individual concerts, to me, a lot of that's about, filling a calendar. And then also when you're in the club business, it's also how did the bar do? You're worried about, bar drinks and that sort of thing and what kind of sales you had. With festivals, granted, you want to worry about other ancillary things too, but it's really, it's such a creative pursuit. It is about bringing people together, big masses of people for numerous artists. So it's like everything I would maybe have done at a nightclub over a 3-month period, and I'm putting it all in a one weekend. And just seeing the massive humanity and just everybody just so happy, and seeing this eclectic mix of music and art, and in a beautiful setting. I was like, wow. I felt like I was really making much more of an effect on the public on that than anything I had ever done before. And there was certain creativity to it, because I look at putting together a festival, I look at it as an art. At least the good festivals really are. And then because you're juggling and putting a jigsaw puzzle together all at the same time, you try to have the right genres. You have to be cognizant of production needs, and will they work in your festival, and what's going to sell tickets, but then also what's going to maybe not sell tickets but make a great impression on somebody. So all of those things. And so I looked at it as my art. I still do. And so I did that for 18 years. And then Bumbershoot, like a lot of festivals, it was run by a small nonprofit company, and you have some bad years of weather or financial distress or whatever. It got to a point where the company struck a deal with AEG, or like Live Nation, and so they took over the running of the festival. And I could have stayed, but in a sort of a demoted role. And I was like, okay, this isn't feeling right to me. It's time for me to move on. 18 years, how long am I supposed to be at something, So I wasn't sure what I was going to do. And I actually was thinking, well, maybe I go back to Boston or New York. Maybe I'm not staying in Seattle. Who knows? But then, a few things came my way. I did have an LLC. So my company, Porter Productions, I've actually had for years, but it was more of a little side thing for just little small side projects. All of a sudden, that kind of out of necessity, that became my thing. And I got a number of different contracts for events in Seattle. And then also my life going full circle. My dear friend, JJ Gonson, she had this business, Cuisine and Locale, which is a catering company, but it was in this old venue, it's old sort of Italian function hall. And she would do occasional public shows there. She decided to pivot in the beginning of 2016 and we're going to concentrate more on a venue here rather than a private event space. So it was rechristened as Once Ballroom, or Once Ballroom and Lounge. And, I was in touch with her from time to time, and we were talking, and, she was like, one thing led to another. It was like, well, why don't you book it? Obviously our lives are very mobile. Here we are, you and I are talking, we're just all on our computers here. I could book it from Nebraska or Alaska if I wanted to, although it does behoove me to be back from time to time to check on things and stuff. So, and also I had, an elderly mother I needed to get back for, and also, so it really was actually at the right time for me to, kind of lead this bi-coastal existence starting in 2016, where I'm just going back and forth between Seattle and Boston. So that was great. And so here I am doing something that I was doing back in the 90s, booking a venue. But then I still had enough things to keep me here in Seattle. So that was 2016 and 2017. And then I had a really huge game changer in 2018. because hey, 2 cities isn't enough. Let's throw a 3rd city in where I'm going to have to be at a lot, in San Francisco. There's a huge festival that's been going on now. This would have been the 20th year of it. It's called Hardly Strictly Bluegrass. Started as a bluegrass festival, but it changed, hence it's called Hardly Strictly Bluegrass, because now it's a very eclectic festival, sort of an Americana leaning one. And the woman who had been programming it for, I guess, about 18 years, 17 years at that point, and she sort of semi-retired. And so they needed to bring somebody in. Again, the good old networking, that you can do in this industry is so important. So I had an old friend acquaintance who was becoming the executive director of the event. And she's like, hey, what are you up to now? Would you be interested in this? And I was like, mind blown, because this was like as big of a festival as Bumbershoot, which I missed. Part of me really missed working on something that scale. I mean, this is like hundreds of thousands of people over a weekend. It's the first weekend of October it happens in Golden Gate Park. Also an amazingly beautiful setting to have a festival. So anyway, long story short, I ended up signing up and we're starting to work on that in 2018, which just happened to be the same year, because I didn't know this was going to come down the pike. I was already planning to start the Town and the City Festival, because I thought, if I can take everything that I've learned over 20 plus years and apply it to my old hometown, that's really something special. Because to me, Lowell, while I've always been proud of where I'm from, and I've always liked it, I've always found it from years past, I found it a very underachieving city. If you wanted to do cool stuff, you had to go down to Boston and Cambridge for that. Nothing's going on in Lowell, with occasional exception. But I got to say, like the last 6-7 years, the arts, music community there, the creative community, restaurants, all kinds of things have just really blown up there. Like all of a sudden, I look at Lowell in very different eyes than I used to. Yeah. And there were a lot of people, when I came up with this idea of having, I saw, South by Southwest in Austin, although a couple other festivals that really inspired me is one called Treefort Music Fest that happens in Boise, Idaho. There's another one called Iceland Airwaves, which happens in Reykjavik, Iceland, which is not a very big city. And then there were some others. Another one called Big Ears Festival in Knoxville, Tennessee. So there's a little underlying tie there of these smaller secondary cities. There are some others that happen in other cities like that too. And I thought, well, why not Lowell? In fact, in a way, I think Lowell is more attractive than some of those other places I mentioned, because it is near a huge urban center, Boston. It's very accessible. You've got 3 highways that either hit it or come near it. You've got commuter rail there. You're still in Massachusetts. You're only 45, 50 minutes away from Boston, and you have this downtown area that's very easily walkable, old, quaint, historic downtown area. And everybody that I reached out to, whether it was people in the city council to business owners, everybody's like, that's such a great idea. Let's do that. How can we help? And, what's happening in a lot of big cities, is now it's like, okay, well, yeah, we'll help you. It'll cost this much. Or here, we'll help you. And, but you have to go through all these hoops. And it's just the way big cities are. It's not plus or minus. It's just the way it is. So these smaller cities, though, are very hungry to attract more people to live there. They're very much all about economic development. I mean, you're seeing in some other places too. Salem, Worcester's working on a lot. They're building a stadium for a minor league team. So you see, and that's a game changer. And I'm seeing that all over the country too. Mm-hmm. There's a real game changer. So I'm very bullish lately about small cities. Because once upon a time, even looking historically, Austin, Seattle, Portland, Oregon, they were looked at as kind of like podunk kind of college cities, really. I mean, a lot of bands would skip those cities on tour regularly back in the 70s and 80s.
Throw Portland, Maine in there too. Portland, Maine is one of my favorite music cities these days.
Portland, Maine's a great one too, absolutely. And I actually have 2 musician friends who just moved there. Yeah, I mean, that's where I'm seeing, like, where are creatives, because they're getting priced out of the big cities. They're getting priced out of Boston, New York, Seattle, San Francisco. They can go on and on. So they're moving to a lot of these different these different places like Lowell and Portland, Maine, great example. I'm hearing about other little creative little hotbeds like, Wilmington, Delaware, or Carrboro, North Carolina, Tucson, Arizona. There would have been second thoughts in the past. So it's going to be very interesting to see though how all those places are going to be in 10 years. So I look at Lowell, obviously it's been my own hometown, and so I look at it as a little bit of an underdog, but it has a lot more respect, I think, from the people around New England, like, oh, Lowell, I'll go there. And obviously Jack Kerouac's kind of a hook there for a lot of people, the whole literary world, and, Jack being there. And that's why I call it the Town the City Festival. I don't mean this to be a Kerouac festival per se, but it's Kerouac inspired. It's named after his first book, which was called The Town and the City, the town referring to Lowell. So it's very much about Lowell. And, it's sort of inspired by Kerouac's creativity and, exploration that he was known for. And that's what I'm looking at. This is like, even though you might want to, those who go to the Town and City Festival may go there for particular bands or, acts that they want to see. My whole thing about the beauty of festivals is discovering your next favorite band, discover your next artist. What can you explore and discover? It's a really important part of festivals, and that's what I try to do here.
I was going to bring that up to you because when you were talking about the logistics of a festival, and you kind of got an idea of what you mean by that. Because anybody who's ever been to a festival knows, like, the good ones, the ones where you have good experiences, are when everything's kind of moving like a fine-oiled machine. This stage ends, everybody shifts, and the next band's ready to go, and you get all sorts of entertainment in what seems like a short amount of time, but it's not. It's a long day a lot of times, 3 days, but it's just so much happening all in this well-oiled machine. And I wonder, for you, how much pressure is that? How much work goes into that? You said it's your craft, so obviously you're doing a lot of thinking, about who should go where, what artist goes where, all this stuff. There must be a million things going on in your mind during the course of a festival.
For sure. So my different projects that I work on, it kind of varies. The Town the City Festival, that's my baby. Okay. I'll just back up a second and show the examples of the other ones that I was doing, like Bumbershoot that I used to do, Hardly Strictly Bluegrass. I also work on another one in Seattle called South Lake Union Block Party. And those are, have a little, a crew. People who've worked on it for a long time. So you almost have it kind of down to a science at that point, and you've got a routine, you've got a production staff that you can rely on, you've got marketing people, you've got all kinds of, whole team. Hardly Strictly Bluegrass being something that takes up a huge chunk of Golden Gate Park. We have an army of people, and they've been there for a while. They know what to do, and it's all set. So for that instance, on those two, I'm mainly just worrying about the talent programming and some administration. Now with the Town the City Festival, though, I was starting something from scratch, and man, I went through a lot that first year. You talk about giving birth or shooting up a rocket ship, or another analogies one can use. That could get starting a festival from scratch in a place that something like that's never been done. The Lowell has the Lowell Folk Festival, which is a huge event. It's been going on great for many years, but it's been going on for many years. It's also an outdoor festival. They set up stages, which is tough into itself. But this sort of thing where you're dealing with all these different entities, all these different, because I had, depending on the night, anywhere from 7 to 11 stages going on throughout the evening, and so. Yeah, we were in a huge learning curve. A lot of people who I brought in to help me, who were wonderful. I can't thank my staff enough, most of whom, are doing it volunteer. A lot of this is volunteer. We haven't made any money on this thing. It usually takes, if you make any money from festivals, it takes years, maybe 3, 4, 5 years before a festival can maybe get into the black, if you're lucky. So, but I just felt very compelled, like I've got to do this. Like the stars are really aligning. Like I met the mayor and he was really into it. And, and then the state representative from the area is really into it. And just all these people went out of their way to help me out, venues that were essentially giving us the venue for free. They were like, here, we're not going to charge because we want to see this happen. We want to see this work. So it was really inspiring, but I lost a lot of sleep. I was the executive producer and the talent programmer of it, but then I had to bring this team in and also in some cases teach them how to do certain things. I'm not really because at a lot of festivals, you'll have a sponsorship department, you'll have a marketing department, production department, programming department, and I can go on and on, special projects, admissions, all these different things come into play. So I had to some extent on that first year, I had to wear every single hat to some extent. Last year, I got some people had already gone through it once a year, and like my assistant, Bridget Duggan, who mainly books once ballroom for us. And, she was like, okay, now I see how this goes. Here, I can help you on this and this. I was like, thank God, here, take it. Great. I just gained another hour of sleep now that you'd taken that. And then I had some other people that stepped up to help more. So that was great. But we also are kind of a relative in the festival term, shoestring budget and everything. Our budget for this is minute compared to some of the other ones I mentioned. Some of them are some of them the millions budget. Our budget on this is under 100K for sure.
What's the horror story? Is it dealing with the musicians? Is it a fear of the show's not selling? What is the horror story? What is the one that really makes you lose that sleep?
Well, the horror story that I've only had, yeah, I mean, not selling and all of that, obviously that plays into it, but you're getting ready. That's the anxiety. And I don't think I'm prone to anxiety attacks, but I think I almost was having something going on because I was just, I'd feel so overwhelmed and I would just look at all my work and I just stare at it for a while. I'm like, how am I going to do this? But I got through it. But I did run into a nightmare. Actually, it was last year. Something I could never have predicted. Because, I picked a time of the year where, okay, school's back in, UMass, Lowell, and Middlesex Community College are running at that time. So, okay, that's a good time. And, fall is such a beautiful time in New England. Leaves changing and everything, nice vibe. And so I'm having it in October before, it's starting to get real too cold in November. So October, it's nice, sweater weather and everything. And this will be just perfect. So I'm not going to run it, the worst weather I'm going to run into, we're past the hurricane season and everything. Worst, maybe it's going to rain. But no, the forecasts are usually great that week, and so, we're all looking good. And then, but something really weird happened. Half of downtown had a power outage. If I understood this was on the first night. And so we're just getting everything going. The first day is always the hardest day. After a while, then second day or third day of these things, then they're kind of running themselves. But that first day, we get all of Merrimack Street, which is one of the main drags, and another area nearby were out of power. And I found out the story later, there was some sort of work being done nearby. They tripped some transformer, so that some sort of construction screwed up some electrical power for the downtown. And so it put us out of whack for about 2-3 hours, something like that. I remember
that. That was such a big story because everybody was so on edge about that stuff after the Merrimack Valley gas explosions that, wait, somebody tripped up what?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yes, exactly. So it ended up they rerouted whatever they had to, they had to, National Grid, I guess that rerouted something. So then the power went back on before we started. Like, I think our first show was maybe starting at like around, we were doing, 7 o'clock, but we were doing sound checks and stuff before that. So we really needed power, no later than 5:36. So, but we had it. So it was like, okay, that was the scare of the day. That was weird. All right, we'll go forward. But our problems weren't over at that point, Drew. No, because then out of the blue at, I don't know, maybe it was like around 9 o'clock, 9:30, the power went out again. Now, not all of downtown, and it affected, this time it affected it affected 3 of our venues. It would have affected a 4th one, but I wasn't running that one on that day. We were running it only on Saturday, so I got fine there. But 3 venues, no power, still had plenty of acts to go. And so we found out later that however the National Grid rerouted it, it overloaded some circuit. And so we were out of power, and we were out of power for the rest of the night on those little street areas. Luckily, my 2 biggest venues, it didn't affect them. But still, these were notable venues, and one I'll give an example to. So the Warp and Weft, great pub music venue, huge supporters of the festival, and they were on. I had the Mallet Brothers Band, who are a pretty prominent New England band, and Frank Morey were going to play. Well, kind of what I was saying earlier about making lemonade out of lemons, we actually ended up, even though it was stressful as all hell, but they, and also some of the acts that played at, or were scheduled to play at the Worthen Cafe, which is another venue, regular venue in Lowell. They all like, okay, let's get some candles, let's get some flashlights, let's get some, emergency lights, whatever we can get going. We'll walk in the middle of the room, get off stage, whatever, and do this acoustic set. And I'll bring up the Warp and Weft as an example, because I'm so blown away. I mean, they had a hard time, all their credit card machines are out and everything, and they're having trouble selling drinks, but everybody stayed. The whole it was packed, and everybody stayed. And they're there for, the power's up, I got my beer, and I got the music here, might as well keep going with it. And it was like this beautiful kumbaya kind of moment. Everybody's singing along with Mallet Brothers and Frank Morey, and they're in the middle of this, and everybody's just candles, little light, but they made that. Sometimes out of disaster, you can make a beautiful moment out of it, or see what it seems like disaster. I mean, I don't want to put myself through that ever again, but I mean, that was one of the most special moments, most talked about moments that whole weekend. It was just, everybody was just, so blown away by it. I mean, there were people that are saying that they were at the venue who I know weren't, I was there when the lights went out kind of thing story, but that was story. It was a beautiful moment too. So luckily on the Saturday, the next night, everything was, all the power was on, everything was fine. We had Buffalo Tom play, and they did an amazing set. It sold out show at this place, the Zorba Music Hall, and it was really great. And we saw growth that year. So after that first year, we had a certain amount of people, and I'm like, okay, I need to see some growth. We definitely had more people, had more sponsorship backing and everything. So we really feel like we're on to something. So I can't say, I don't know how many. I mean, I hope this can go on for years, in the future. But, it's going to have to make sense from a financial standpoint. But so far, we've got enough support and interest. And so we're pushing through. And then, with the pandemic, obviously we can't push through in the real way we want to. But putting a little webcast together here is at least a little something that we can give to the public, and, and also, help out the artists and give them more exposure.
Yeah, keeping that connection this year, I think, is big. And I know that's what you're going for here at the Town and the City Festival, hopefully back in rearing and ready to go next year, like it should be, real in person. We hope. Fingers crossed. I want to ask you one more quick one, and then you have to set aside a minute for rapid fire, which is a first thing that comes to your head, and you got to answer, and it's a lot of pressure. And okay. I have no hold you to any penalties.
I'm doing it without coffee today, but I'll be ready. I'll do my best.
No coffee in Seattle?
I know. No, I went to the dentist earlier. That's why we had to do this one. So, coffee's coming up. Okay. Coffee for lunch is fine with me.
Fair enough. That's the Seattle way. All right, but one quick one before rapid fire. I do just want to ask. This show is actually based out of Newburyport, so obviously, Merrimack Valley, Lowell, right next door, and a lot of people knowing each other. One thing that I have found, call me out if I'm wrong on this, but Newburyport is really, they do the festivals on the water every now and then, and they get a nice firehouse center for the arts down there. And I noticed these cities, and Newburyport is a city, but these cities and towns that really support live music, they tend to kind of go all in on it. I notice it spill over at the bar scene. There's live music in the bars. The owners, the city officials, the people, they just call for more live music. And I think that is a really cool thing for communities. I'm sure you're starting to feel that in Lowell, I can tell. And I think your festival is probably playing a big part of it. And you may be seeing that spill over a little bit, but people love live music, and the communities that love it tend to go all in on it. Am I right?
Well, what do you mean when you say all in? You mean just, that there's just a lot of it, or that?
Yeah, I mean, I think like my town, I'm from a town called Danvers, which you may know.
Okay, sure.
There is not, I have to go searching really hard for live music in Danvers, and I usually won't find it. Like, it's hard to find. But if I go to Newburyport, I can pretty much find three different places.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. Well, I think, it's contagious, or hopefully it is.
Yes.
I mean, I think I generally speaking, I agree with you. I could certainly cite some other examples. I mean, Lowell actually has a
don't do
music.
that. Much better for my story if you don't cite those examples. No, just kidding.
Okay, yeah. Well, no, but it's a happy ending, though. I mean, because the thing is, sometimes things would start up, and then for a variety of reasons, business goes out of, for instance, Lowell, here's the thing, and I hope this happens if Newburyport ever runs into this. The focal point of the Lowell music scene, and there really is one, it's small, but there are a lot of bands that are living around Lowell now who play in Boston. And it was this great place called Uncharted Gallery. And it was an art space, a cafe, but their thing was music. And that was like the CBGBs or whatever you want to call it. That was the main place, in Lowell for original music. And it closed. They ran out of business, and sometimes when that closes, that can really be kind of an end or a temporary end for a lot of places. But to Lowell's, other places try to pick up the slack a little bit. And other places are doing music, and other places, and we hope on this, there's rumors, we'll see. Now the pandemic kind of put everything on halt, but there are rumors of another venue or venues coming up later. Hopefully that happens. So that's the thing. So the whole community, what's important is it's not all rested on one venue. Because sometimes when that one venue goes away, as I said, that can be a huge detriment to the whole scene. So, but if you've got a number of people that are going all in, like you described, and you've got musicians and a good word of mouth, and it's cool in Newburyport, and we love to go there and hang, love to go there, play, and you see some success. I mean, that's the thing. Some businesses are going to see another business has success. Oh, well, maybe we ought to try that. Or maybe we ought to try that with a different genre of music. Those guys are doing rock and roll. I'd rather do more country Americana, or we'd rather do, more, funk and soul band, whatever it is, but you just see, I think even though some people can look at these things as competitive entities, I think they all feed into and help each other in indirect ways, because you're bringing people to that area. And then also attracting people to maybe live there. And if you've got people, I mean, I know some well-known photographers, there's a huge visual arts community in Lowell, one of the biggest in all of New England. And that, I think, indirectly kind of make, the musicians, music community isn't quite as big as the visual arts community, but it's growing. And I think it gets a little inspiration from the visual arts folks. So all of that, that builds community, and people make a place, they make a place good. And so that's what's really key. And so, yeah, I think if you go all in and you see others going all in, it's going to make others want to go all in. So keep that going. I'm glad to hear that about Newburyport.
Well, and I'm thinking probably coming out of a pandemic, when we do come out of it, I'm thinking that's going to be even more important is for a lot of these businesses to pick each other up, I would think.
I agree.
Chris Porter, all right. Rapid fire. Ready to rock?
Give it to me. Here we go.
With the reputation of Porter Productions on the line, here we go.
All right.
Favorite musician?
Jimmy Page.
Best concert you ever been to?
David Bowie at the Paramount Theater in Seattle. Back in, I think, tell me what the year would have been. 2000, do you need the year? 2000, I think it was 2004.
2004. All right. Very nice. Favorite venue?
Anywhere in the world?
We try to keep it to like one building, one theater, or one stadium, or one.
See, that was tough for rapid fire. I just had like 3 names hit me. I'll say the Ryman Auditorium in Nashville.
Okay. Favorite place in New England to go see a show?
Oh, that's not. I'm not being rapid fire, am I?
It's okay.
I get. Well, I'm gonna be such a homer and say Once Ballroom, because it's such a cool community place. It's intimate, sounds and looks good, and I love Somerville. So yeah.
Album that changed your life?
The Rolling Stones, Out of Our Heads.
All right. What is the, let's see, where do we go from there? I need a couple more good ones for you. A couple random ones. We always hit on a couple random ones. Favorite class in school? What led you here?
Oh, my favorite class. Well, my favorite in any school, since I was going to go to elementary, but no, I mean, college is all right here. I was an American Studies major. and I took a number of different courses. My favorite class I ever took is called Recording America, and it was about documentary filmmaking on something Americana themed for the American Studies program at Brandeis. So that wasn't even a class to me. That was like pure fun the whole time.
Understood. All right. Is the Seattle coffee, is it the real deal?
Oh yeah. And as a matter of fact, I mean, Starbucks obviously is a huge entity, and they're all over there's as many Starbucks here as maybe the Dunkin' Donuts, around New England, but we're really all about more the mom and pop places or the smaller chains and stuff. But yeah, there's no shortage of great coffee in Seattle or the whole Northwest. Yeah, you can't go wrong. Although one weird thing is, I mean, I know so many people who just love Dunkin' Donuts. There are no Dunkin' Donuts here. When I moved here, there were 2, and they closed down. There hasn't been and everything. So, because I do like the Dunkin' muffins better than the Starbucks ones.
Interesting. I saw Dave Matthews do a live stream I think he's from Seattle or lives out there.
Yeah, he did. As a matter of fact, Dave, which one you saw? I think he's done more than one, but he did one that I worked on for the Washington Farmland Trust, which is a farmers support group, and he participated in that. So, but he did his filming though. Because also I think he has a home like in Virginia or North Carolina or something. But you're right, he is usually a Seattle resident. I've seen him around numerous times.
He was shouting out to all the local coffee joints. I kind of liked that move.
Yeah.
All right, final 2 here. Final 2 of the rapid fire. And what do we end with? I have all these great options to go with. Actually, I have one note here that people on Twitter, I've been getting a lot of requests. You should let somebody ask you a question. Do you have a question for me before we go? I'm going to pay this off.
Okay, I can get back to you now. What's my question for you?
Yep.
Well, I'll throw that back to you. Life-changing artist that you heard that totally opened up your mind to music.
Yeah, easy one for me. It's Springsteen. Okay. I don't know why I took that weird roundabout. I'm 33, so I took that weird kind of route to him. And I remember being in, it must have been, let's see, so it was the Rising album, just 2012. And I think I was really just trying to I was really finding my music taste. And I saw a picture of him on Rolling Stone, I remember. And I remember getting into my car and like it was meant to be. I just had the radio randomly on. And my dad was driving, actually. My dad picked me up, and whatever he was listening to, I said, "Who is that?" And he goes, "I think that's the new Springsteen song." And I go, "I love that." And I just read about him in Rolling Stone, wherever I was coming from. And I was just interested. Long story short, a few months later, he's my first ever live concert. And
that was your first one. Nice.
My first real one. My dad was a musician, so I always grew up around little shows and everything. But that was my first, I remember my dad always says that I took him to his first Springsteen show because I'm like this, freshman or sophomore in high school. And I'm like, "Dad, we got to go see this guy." And then I did the Rising first and then kind of caught up and did Born to Run and Born in the USA. So
do you see him every time he comes through? You never miss a show?
One of those nuts, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like it's this rite of passage for Springsteen people or a sort of, I don't know, bragging rights thing in recent years. Because I've seen him 2 times and he's always been, no opener, plays this long show.
Yeah.
But holy crap, like recent years, hasn't it been going on like 5 hours or something like that? I mean, everybody's like, "Oh, I was there for all 5 hours." And I'm like, I don't know if there's any, and I like much respect to Springsteen and many others. I don't know if I want to see anybody for 5 hours. But
sort of like the Broadway. The Broadway is nice hour 45 bundled up.
That would have been all right, because I'm all about keep him wanting more, But
yeah.
But that's a great one, great pick for you.
It is. I remember. Yeah, first, I remember he actually opened the first show, Providence. It was right after the fire there in Providence, the nightclub fire.
Oh, after the station fire. Yeah.
Yeah, and he did a song. I remember he dedicated a song to that. But it was that night he actually opened, and we were, of course, getting into wars and everything. And he opened up with War, and counted off 1, 2, and then War. What is it good for? And I remember it was just one of those moments where your hair just kind of stands up, and it was just, I'll never forget that. But we could get going on Bruce all day. Final question for you. I was wondering, we're going to get into the winter months here in New England. I don't know what happens to a lot of these live music scenes. People are trying to stretch things deep into the fall as a festival. organizer, of a man who knows what goes into them. Can these things can live music happen in the winter if we're not inside? How do we get our live music fix?
Oh, well, and outdoors, I don't know. We're gonna have to invest in a lot of those heat lamps that the restaurants get, I guess, and just put it all over the lot, I guess. I don't know, man. I mean, that's the thing. Outdoors.
What's the biggest difference, indoor versus outdoors anyway? Just your normal festivals, non-pandemic. What's the biggest?
Oh, non-pandemic.
Yeah. Well, I was at, but now I'm curious. Now that I've talked myself into this question, in normal times, what's the biggest difference
Between indoor and outdoor?
Yeah, like behind the scenes stuff. I mean, I'm sure sound is all different.
Well, yeah, I mean, in the indoor one, you have more infrastructure. I mean, outdoor ones, whether it's out a nice idyllic park or it's in a big dusty field and you throw up 2 or 3 stages on that, well, no matter what, you have to like build this like little mini temporary city.
Yeah.
So the overhead on anything outdoor is usually way higher. And there's going to be a need to sell more tickets or have quite a bit of substantial sponsorship backing. The indoors, I mean, that sometimes you have to bring in, equipment and production equipment in the indoor places too, but not as much. And you got a roof over your head, and it's a little bit more of a controlled situation. And have to set up fencing. It's like this building with a finite capacity that you can monitor. Outdoors, I mean, if it's going to be a free thing, then it's not as much of an issue. But if it's going to be something that's admissions, okay, well, then you're going to have to gate this big outdoor area. And that's a whole other, crew of people. There's a ton of, and this is actually a good example of why, this pandemic's not only hurting musicians and the people who run and work at venues, it's hurting fencing companies, it's hurting staging companies, lighting and sound companies, guys who are people, stage hands, union and non-union, whatever, all of these people who help build all this stuff. Because that's the thing, my company is essentially a 2-person company year round, but I have all these subcontractors and people come and work for me for part of the year. And that's even more so the case with production companies that put on these outdoor festivals. So it's just it's astounding how many people and how many different walks of life this is affecting from the event world. So I mean that's but that, to your question, that's really what the difference is. I mean it's also a different vibe. I mean I like to aesthetically outdoor festivals, I think, can be more memorable and more inspiring. Like Hardly Strictly Bluegrass in Golden Gate Park. My God, you don't even feel like you're in San Francisco when you're walking around there. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but just these beautiful meadows and trees and hills, and that is almost a part of the event. Because the event is about an experience. It's not just seeing one act. Hopefully, it's not. You can do that anytime, but just seeing all those different acts in this setting, this landscape, that's really important for festivals. The landscape, though, for the town, the city festival, in a way, there is there too. It's this historic city that's having a growing, arts community, and in all these different businesses, and we're all, and they all have a different kind of vibe. Each of the rooms all have their own different kind of vibe and visual aspects to them. So that's sort of that there, so it's just sort of apples and oranges, it kind of depends, but I can, the outdoor festivals, they're just a little big handful. You need quite an army to put them on and be in good financial, because that's why there've been so many festivals that have gone away, well before the pandemic. It's just, financially, it's really tough. So I would love to have an outdoor aspect of the town and the city someday, but we're just not ready for that yet.
Look who wants to say hello.
Oh, you did it. You called it. The dog was going to just finally showed. What's the dog's name?
This is Mookie.
Mookie.
We didn't have to train him
to LA. I know you named him after. I own a signed Mookie Betts jersey. He was my favorite Red Sox.
He's still my favorite player. Still my favorite player.
And he's still one of mine. And I'm happy for him. The Dodgers made it, but every time I'd see him make a play, I'm like, it kind of I should not be there. But anyway, that's a whole other story. Anyway,
It feels wrong. Well, World Series underway, and he's in it. The Red Sox aren't, so there you go.
yeah.
Chris,
I wish him the best.
I do too. What a great player. Gray's a great dog too. He's sticking around for a while. He's an exciting.
Yeah, don't trade him to LA. Yeah.
We won't. He did a good job waiting until the end of the show. He's telling me to wrap it up though. So there you go.
Okay, that was your cue. All right.
I kept you for longer than I told you as well, Chris Porter, just because I enjoyed it. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. Good luck with the town and the city festival here. The virtual.
Yes, so we should say 8 p.m. Eastern time. Available on YouTube on the Once Virtual Venue YouTube page. Also, it'll be simulcast on the Town and the City Festival.com website. Also on the Town and City Festival's Facebook page. And then also you can, or if you really want an intimate experience, we have a Zoom call for that. You can go on the oncesomerville.com website and buy a ticket. This is, by the way, you're not really buying a ticket. They're all free, but get a free ticket and you get a link to a Zoom broadcast and can have some interaction after the show. So that's another option too. So a lot of platforms to watch at 8 p.m. Eastern time. It'll probably run for about 90 minutes to 2 hours, 15 artists. You'll see me. I'll be talking at various times through it, and hope people can catch some, if not all of it.
Absolutely. Jump on there. Nice way to spend an evening. Hunker on in on the couch, right?
Right on.
Absolutely, man. Hey, it was great to meet you. I really enjoyed it, Chris.
Likewise, Drew. Thanks so much for your time. It was great to talk with you.
Absolutely. We'll meet you at a concert, maybe at your festival next year. How about that, huh?
Oh, let's do it, man. Absolutely. I'll come out to Newbury. It's funny about your Newburyport. I was there first time in many years, just a few months ago. When I was sort of driving around and in July, and I said, I'll take a little drive up in the North Shore. I have friends that live around Amesbury and some other areas near there, and it's a nice city. I love being near a waterfront. So which I can have here. I have a full view of Puget Sound, Elliott Bay from where I'm at. So love the coasts, but hopefully, I'd love to connect with you in person sometime. So.
Absolutely, man. We'll do it. Get back to all the projects you got going in, and stay safe, will you?
All right, you too, man. Be well. Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, Chris Porter of Porter Productions. I sometimes go along with the music, guys. You all know that by now, right? Good way to end the week, everybody. Thank you. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the fall weather. It's beautiful out there. Foliage looking good. You know me, I'm a foliage guy. We'll see you next time. Live from Drew's house. Bye-bye now.